I'm going to help you get your vision back today.
Greg Fritz Ministries wants to give you a free booklet entitled Get Your Vision Back that accompanies this television series as our gift to you. To receive your free printed copy of this booklet, call us at 918-878-8000. To download the ebook version, visit our website at gregfritz.org. Are you tired of hearing bad news? Tune into the good news of the gospel.
I love Greg.
I love the way he teaches faith and the way he teaches healing. It's phenomenal.
Greg Fritz has been changing lives through the good news of the gospel for over 35 years.
Because he delivers the Word of God with such warmth and balance and great clarity.
This good news will inspire, inform, and change you so you can live daily in all the promises of God. Welcome to Good News with Greg Fritz.
Hello, I'm Greg Fritz. Welcome to the Good News program. We're doing a short series, brand new series that we literally organized this filming to get this out to you as soon as we could. It's called Get Your Vision Back, and I love the content. This is what I've envisioned the Good News program to be all about. It's encouraging people to run their race. It's giving you the spiritual equipment you need to overcome. And I would love for you to get this series in audio form. There are 4 messages called Get Your Vision Back, and you can get it in CD or USB. If you go to my website and find this offering here, you can request CD or USB, and if you'd like to get the MP3 downloaded version, which you download directly to your computer, you go through that process, choose the download, and at checkout, enter the code VISION24. Vision24, and you'll get that for free. So if you like free downloads, make sure you get this series. It will help you. It'll encourage you, especially in the climate that we're living in today. We need encouragement. I mean godly, inspired encouragement, and I believe this is. There was a man named Habakkuk, a prophet in the Old Testament, who looked at the state of his world and probably felt the same way most of us do as we look at our world. When we see the crime levels and the crime in the streets, and we see the economy, and we see nations fighting nations, and we see how unstable the world is, and then you have institutions that used to represent, that you could count on, that you believe in, and they're being corrupted. We see all kinds of corruption all around us, and Habakkuk was seeing the same thing, and he made this plea. I'm going to read this one more time from the New Living Translation, and we're not going to probably read this anymore, but I do want to give you this background to what God did for him, because we're going to follow Habakkuk through this transformation. He got his vision back. Even though things were bad, Habakkuk allowed God to help him get his vision back, and that's what I want you to do. So here's what he said, Habakkuk 1 and verse 2. He made this prayer and this observation. How long, O Lord, must I call for help, and you do not listen? Violence is everywhere. I cry, but you do not come and save. Must I forever see these evil deeds? Why must I watch all this misery? Wherever I look, I see destruction and violence. I'm surrounded by people who love to argue and fight. The law has become paralyzed, and there is no justice in the courts. The wicked far outnumber the righteous, so that justice has become perverted. Now, we live in much the same, with much the same problems and threats that he did. Our world is very similar to that in many ways. What do? We could spend the rest of our lives wringing our hands over injustices and right being called wrong and wrong being called right, and things that need to change, and things that used to be trustworthy and above reproach now are corrupted and evil. We could spend all of our time noticing those things, documenting those things, analyzing those things, but that's not going to help you run your race. Obviously, there's evil, there's opposition, these things are happening. But what do? And so, as Habakkuk made this plea to God, God then answered him. And what God said was amazing. In verse 5, he said this, He said, look among the nations and watch. Be utterly astounded, for I will work a work in your days which you would not believe, though it were told you. And so God's response to Habakkuk was, are you giving up on me? Do you think I've quit working? Do you think that my will has come to an end? Do you think that I've now turned the world over to their own devices and that I'm finished dealing with mankind? It's just not true. Now, this is Old Testament, Old Covenant. And what was going to happen in this instance, where God said, I'm going to work a work that you wouldn't believe, is there was going to be an invasion of the Babylonians. They were going to come in and take Israel captive because of their sins, because they had fallen so far away from God. They were going to be taken captives for 70 years before they came back and began to rebuild the wall with Nehemiah and Ezra. But it was because of their sins. So, but the way we relate that in New Testament terms is simply this. This is a day of mercy. That was a day of judgment. That was a dispensation of law and judgment. This is a dispensation of grace and mercy. So the society had gone to a place where it was no longer tolerable, unsustainable, and what happened was an invasion of judgment. I submit to you today that it's not over yet, that today we've gone far away from God as a society, but it is a day of grace and mercy. There will be an invasion of mercy. That's just the day we live in. This is the dispensation of grace. So I believe you'll see in your lifetime, in my lifetime, I have promises that God has given me. I bet you have promises that God has given you. Dreams and visions of your future. Don't give up on God. Don't give up on what He's told you. I believe we're going to see an invasion, not of judgment, as much as some people would love to see judgment. It will be an invasion of mercy. And that has always in this dispensation of grace looked like what we would call revival or awakening. Now, you can say, well, how much of that's due to God and how much of it's due to man? I'm not going to speculate on that. Obviously, people have to want it, and they could live in perpetual revival if they wanted it. God's always willing. But the fact remains that God has made promises to people like me and you that we've not seen fulfilled yet in our lifetime, and the days that we have left are fewer than they used to be. I believe we're going to see God move. I believe we're going to see God reach people. We're going to see people wake up because they're so desperate. They're being really taken advantage of, controlled, manipulated, and eventually people, even in their worst state, some people are going to say, I want to find another solution. Everything I've tried didn't, everything I've thought was going to help didn't help. Every election made things worse. What else is there? And of course, there's the gospel of Jesus Christ. There's going to be an opportunity for us to do something amazing. And let me just read it again, because I believe this is a word from God to us today. Look among the nations and watch. Be utterly astounded. I will work a work in your days which you would not believe, though it were told you. And there have been times throughout history, and I've studied the different revivals and awakenings that the world has seen. And the conditions before that time are very, very dark. In every case, it got bad. So we finally have fulfilled all the qualifications necessary to have a great awakening, because there's just, people are starting to see there's just no hope in anything else. So in that process, don't you get eaten up with that doubt and hopelessness. You do have hope. We have a God in heaven, and He wants us to continue to run the race that's set before us. He wants you, if you've been discouraged, if you've been disappointed, if you've been disillusioned, He wants you to get your vision back. And the first step here is don't give up on God. Don't think that God is not interested or God can't do anything, that it's so bad, and things are gotten to such a state that God can't intervene, that God can't move, that God's power is ineffective. I tell you, God is always willing, and when society, when churches, when people give Him the opportunity, open their hearts, when they give Him any opening, He's able to rush in and fill the void. And that kind of thing's not over yet. Don't give up on your nation. Don't give up on your children. Don't give up on your friends and loved ones. And don't give up on God. God is still working in our behalf. And just because He hasn't done it right yet, or things haven't happened yet, or things keep going the wrong direction, doesn't mean that it won't happen. God doesn't always tell us what's going on at the moment. He doesn't show us behind the scenes. And I think the enemy has more of an idea sometimes than we do. I know, there have been times in my life where it seemed like all of hell was arrayed against me. And I'm like, why? I'm not doing anything. I don't have anything going on. I'm not a threat. And yet the enemy knows more about our future in the spirit sometimes than we do. But I tell you one thing, as God fulfills the promises He's made to me and to my wife and to other people that we know, the world's going to feel the impact. The world's going to feel the effects. But in the meantime, we can't give up hope. You cannot be discouraged and give in to depression and discouragement. That is a lie from the enemy. So, number one, don't give up on God. Let me just give you this. I've talked about this before, and I said, there's old math and there's new math. But let me just say it this way. There's natural math, and then there's supernatural math. And I'm going to use this illustration. One of my favorite examples in the Bible is when in Luke chapter 8, it happened on a certain day when He got into a boat with His disciples, and He said to them, let's cross over to the other side of the lake. And they launched out, and you know what happened, and I get a lot of sermons out of this little adventure they went on. But they've sailed into a storm. And the boat was really in danger. Some of these guys grew up in boats on the water, so they knew a dangerous storm when they saw one. And they got to such a point of discouragement and hopelessness that they woke up Jesus and they literally said, we're all going to die. and if you've ever been in a tough situation, maybe you've said that. Maybe you've watched your last news broadcast and said, this is it. It's over. We're all going to die. Because those disciples, especially the fishermen, knew that in the natural math, this storm plus this boat equals certain death. This boat cannot survive in this storm. It was already taken on water. It's going down. They understood natural math. But God said to, and this is how God interjected Himself into the equation when Habakkuk made his pitiful plea and told God, here's what all's going wrong. God said, watch, look among the nations and be astounded. I will work a work in your... What God's saying is you forgot to include me in this equation. You left me out. You said the politics, the justice, the economy, the world opinion, everything is against, it's all terrible, everybody's and evil is in, but you forgot to add me in. And that's what happened to the disciples. They knew that storm plus that boat equaled death. But what they didn't add in, the new math says, the supernatural math is, this storm plus this boat plus God equals victory. And I mean, that's what a difference God makes when you put Him in the equation. And the problem that we're having is we're watching all these earthly scenarios play out, these news reports, these horrible things happen, and we're watching it, and they're telling us, they're doing the math for us. Unsustainable, they'll say. I heard one expert say that the earth needs 1 billion less people. In order to be sustainable, we need 1 billion less people. And I'm like, okay, How do you eliminate 1 billion people? I mean, let's just think about that for a minute. And let's say that that really needs to be done. How do you go about that? Then I saw another expert a couple of days ago, and you know what they said? That the world would be sustainable with 1 billion people. Well, we have 8 billion. So that expert wants to get rid of 7 billion people. And you look at this and you go, okay, I don't like your math. Your math is flawed. Because even in reality, it's flawed. Because we have 8 billion people on the planet today, and did you know there's less hunger and starvation, data-wise, percentage-wise, than there was 50 years ago, 100 years ago? Less. So the world has less starvation now with 8 billion people than it had with 2 billion. So what that means is we can do this. We can have at least 8 billion people because the number of starvations and whatever is going down. Well, to leave God out of the equation leads to just absolute chaos and defeat every time. They're telling us what climate change is going to. You know, my problem with that is that God made this planet and He knew we were going to develop these gasoline engines, and it's not going to global warm itself to death because God told us how the world's going to end. If you leave God out of the equation, it always is doom and gloom and depression and fear. I want to tell you what God told Habakkuk. He's still involved. He's not pulled out. He hasn't withdrawn. Just because you can't see Him and you don't know what His plans are, don't give up. Don't be discouraged. Don't let the enemy and circumstances rob you of your confidence. Nothing's changed as far as God is concerned between you and God. Aren't you glad that our future is secure in God? It's not dependent on storms or lack of storms or earthquakes or lack of earthquakes or the population. You know, it would be foolish to think that God would say, you know, I had a really neat plan for your life. You were really going to make a difference, but there's 1 billion too many people on the planet now. So, man, I wish we could have done this earlier, but it's too late. I can't really use you for what I wanted to use you for. But that's what people think. They come to these conclusions based on flawed math. And you know, God allows us to get sometimes in these positions. I mean, I believe that. Of course, society's become worse and worse because they've denied God, and He had nothing to do with that. But take Moses and the children of Israel. This always has surprised me that when God delivered Israel from Egypt, they went on their escape route and they marched right up to the Red Sea. And behind them, Pharaoh had decided he made a big mistake, so he got all his soldiers armed and ready and all his chariots and horses, and they went after Israel. So Israel, in Exodus 14, Israel finds themselves with the Red Sea on one side and Pharaoh and his whole army on the other side. Well, the people panicked, and because they're using old math. I get it. I understand. I spend a lot of time and effort to avoid situations like that. I don't want to run out of real estate. I don't want to run out of money. I don't want to run out of food. I don't want to run out of air. And so we're self-preserved. We think that way. But there are times in our lives, folks, where we get into a situation where the old math just doesn't add up. If you're in that situation right now and you're tempted to believe that this world and your life equals destruction, failure, death, you're believing a lie. You're giving in to natural math. Don't do it. And that's what happened right there at the edge of the Red Sea, where this 3 million people are hemmed in, and there is an army. Really, they're wanting to take them back into captivity. They don't want to kill them all, but either way, it's the end of their dream. Their dream was to possess the promised land, and now in their minds, it's all over. We can't swim across this ocean, and Pharaoh's already decided he's not going to let us go free, we're doomed. So this army plus this ocean equals captivity or death. They forgot to add God into the equation. God gets left out way too much, especially with His own people. Put God back in the equation. Moses told the people, "Don't be afraid. Stand still and watch the Lord rescue you today. The Egyptians you see today will never be seen again. The Lord Himself will fight for you. Just stay calm." And that's one of the hardest things to do. Staying calm is not worrying, not fleeing, not being paralyzed by fear, and planning your funeral because of the situation. Staying calm is saying, you know what, He's involved. God's not finished yet. God's going to do what He said He would do, and therefore I don't give up. I'm not going to be influenced or discouraged by this. And I'll tell you, it's so important that we add God into the equation always and say, I understand that things don't look good. Habakkuk listed all of the problems that society was facing at that time. But God was quick to say, I can do a work. I will do a work before your eyes that you wouldn't believe it if I told you you wouldn't believe it. And that's really what God has to deal with, is a lot of people not believing that He's up to the task. But man, it's our turn. We're not facing Pharaoh and being hemmed in by the Red Sea. Our enemies are social enemies, they're economic enemies, political enemies. There's the spirit of Antichrist that's really animated a lot of people that are powerful and influential to control our lives or want to control us. They want to control what we say, what we think, what we do. And so that's what we face. But can I just tell you that kind of influence, society, control, plus you is not defeat, because you have to add God into the equation. So you have all that going on, plus you, plus God equals victory. It's just our turn. It's our turn. The names change throughout history, and sometimes the giants are different, but the process is exactly the same. Don't fall for. That's why we're supposed to read the Bible. When you read the Bible, you see these scenarios repeated over and over and over again, and you get to pick your part. Do you want to be the persecutor? Do you want to be the Pharaoh who hardens his heart, or do you want to be the sinful Jewish person that forsakes their covenant with God and walks contrary to the law of God? Or do you want to be the faithful servant like David, like Daniel, like Moses? Pick your part and play your part. It's our turn. And I believe I'm speaking to David's and to Moses and to Jacob's and to Abraham's, and people who are going to hold on. They're looking for a reason to believe, and I'm giving it to you. Believe God. If you don't believe that there's anything good left in society, fine. Maybe there's not. Maybe it's not worth saving, but it doesn't mean it can't be saved. God can. No one is so lost they can't be saved. And there's no ground so dry that rain won't refresh it and make it fertile again. And so the other illustration is David and Goliath. David went out to face Goliath, and really, in all reality, David plus Goliath equals death. David should not have won that battle, but he never did feel like he was facing Goliath by himself. And man, can I just tell you, that's where people who are depressed and afraid and fearful and have given up hope, they think that they're going to have to face the future alone. If you're a Christian, that is not how you should look at your future. It's not you against the world. It's you and God against whatever's chosen to come against you at the time. And man, if you let the world help you, they will pick your enemies for you. You know, when I was a kid, it was the ozone hole. That was supposed to be the end all for the world, the ozone hole. And then there's nuclear holocaust, and then there's Y2K, and I've gone all over all these doomsday scenarios, but none of those things really mattered. Even if what we're facing is a real enemy, and it is, us plus God plus anything else they want to throw at us equals victory for us. Don't leave God out of the equation. Believe God, believe the promises of God, and believe that David plus God plus Goliath equaled victory. And it's just our turn to go through that process, and that's not so bad. What better do we have to do? I wish we could all go back to Happy Days and go to Mel's Diner and see Fonzie and Potsy, but that's not going to happen. We're living here right now, where the diner's now a vape store and a dispensary, and Mel's gone and he's turned it over to a drug dealer, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Things have gotten so coarse and changed so drastically that Mel's Diner can't even be found anymore. You know, but so what? You know, when you're a champion, and victory is what you have been born to do, you don't care who your enemy is. You're going to win. And so don't let the enemy get under your skin, get in your head, and discourage you in these days. Get your vision back. And this is exactly what God told Habakkuk after he said, I'll work a work, don't leave me out, I'm going to work a work. Then he said, write the vision and make it plain on tablets that he may run who reads it. In other words, don't forget the promises I've made to you. Write them down, because I'm going to do what I said I would do. And that's the truth. You can believe that. You can count on it. We're going to go into that in the next session. I want to do this for anyone who would like to be a partner. Maybe you've thought about it. Maybe you've heard me talk about partnership and how important it is. I don't have sponsors. I don't have, you know, big money backing this ministry. I trust God, and He has raised up partners to help us. And we'd love to have you consider being a partner. If you'd like to do that, you can go to the ways to give on the screen and set up a recurring giving amount, $25, $50, or $100. Call our helpline. You can do it that way, and they can help you. Or you can go to the website and look at the partner page and go through the steps. But if you do become a partner this week, I want to send you this series free of charge as part of your partner gift pack. And it will include either CD or USB. You request what you prefer. But we will send that to you for anyone who chooses to become a new partner. And be sure to ask for your free series. You know, we have partners signing up all the time. These broadcasts will be seen months down the road, and so we won't know. So you just have to verify that, hey, he said I could have this free series if I became a partner when I watched that program and I want my series. We'd love to send it to you in CD or USB version. Love to hear from you. Until next time, and please don't miss the rest of this teaching. Until then, remember this: the good news is so good, the bad news doesn't matter.